Welcome everyone to the Ask an Architect show. Here with me today, Tim Nuanis. Excited to have Tim on the show. I think he's going to bring a lot of value by kind of going through a broad range of topics. We're going to talk about small, medium, large size firms. We're going to talk a little bit about healthcare, hopefully give you some ARE tips, and round it out with some personal work-life balance conversation. So, Tim, thanks for being on the show. Real quick for the folks, because they don't know who you are, can you tell them what your current position is and kind of what you do?
Sure. My name's Tim Nuanis, like I was introduced, and I work at Array Architects here in DC, and I am a senior associate there.
Great.
Yeah.
So, Tim, you didn't start out here in DC. You were in Denver originally.
Yep, absolutely.
And so that's kind of where you started your professional career in architecture.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the couple small firms that you worked at to start off with? What were those like? What was that environment like? What was your experience?
So after I graduated from Tulane in 2007, it was kind of not the best economic time for architects, as
Sure.
everybody knows. And so I had an opportunity to work at this place called Davis Partnership. That was like the only place I ever wanted to work. So I
Cool.
applied to them directly out of college, got a job, and started working there. So they were like a medium-sized firm in downtown Denver, maybe
Okay.
like 50, 60 people.
So what kind of things were you doing to start off with? What was your first 6 months like there?
Oh man, so my first 6 months was really interesting. I started working on a Volvo dealership, and that was a really fun project. And it was just
Okay.
very like right out of school. Didn't know what the heck was going on. I was like
Sure.
22, 23, and eventually they have a couple different sort of studios within Davis Partnership, but they focus primarily on healthcare.
Okay.
And so they do a little bit of commercial too. And so eventually I moved over to the healthcare studio, and that's really where
Okay.
I started to find my passion.
Cool. And you've kind of continued that along. We're going to talk about healthcare more later because you
Yeah.
obviously focus on that a lot now. So from Davis, you went over to, is it Hyperform?
Yeah, it was like Hyperform Design Co-op, and
Okay.
it was right during the economic downturn, so things weren't looking very good. But it was a very interesting place. I got to work with some really wonderful people that created a really interesting environment that navigated the sort of like tough economic time, because there wasn't anybody that was like a full-time employee. I think I and a couple other people were, but then we would bring people in as needed to pursue and complete projects.
So those are kind of smaller environments. What would you say is the benefit or biggest advantage to working in a small firm environment?
I would have to say that you really get to know everybody. I think you get to work on projects from the very beginning, the very inception, to the very end, and I think
Okay.
that's a really good advantage
So
because
the comprehensive nature of it.
absolutely you get a lot of experience rather than we can talk about the larger firms in a moment, but
Sure, yeah.
that's really what you get with a small firm. You really get a lot of experience in very small parts of the project, and then you really get to know everybody.
And you see everything.
You get to see everything. Yeah, absolutely.
So from the small firm environment, you moved into HDR, which
Yep.
is the exact polar opposite.
Yeah.
So 4+ years at HDR in Denver. Tell us what that was like.
It was actually a really wonderful experience. It was like it's an AE firm. I would say like little A, big E.
Okay.
But within that environment, there is basically whereas some of the smaller firms, I would liken them to like the Earth and the sort of solar system.
Okay.
And then here at HDR, it's like the galaxy basically is what you get. And
So it's that order of magnitude in difference.
Yeah, absolutely. There's people that work, there's just like thousands of employees, and you have an incredible amount of resources at your fingertips.
And this is where you got licensed, correct?
I did, yeah. It was the perfect environment to foster getting licensed. I spoke to my project manager at the time and told him that it was very important that I got licensed, and that I wanted to just convey to him that I'm going to complete my studio work to the best of my ability, but then also was it possible to leave at like 4 come in at like 6:37, leave at 4, and then have some time to study every evening.
Sure.
So that was really great. And then another thing about getting licensed at a big firm is that they have an incredible amount of resources. All the study materials
Yep.
you could ever think of given to you. They give you an economic advantage to getting licensed. You get like a little bit of a bonus, which is really cool.
Sure.
Not obviously why I got licensed, but really
Sure.
helps to offset some of the costs.
Money never hurts.
And they have a big enough studio that if you take a test in the morning or something, you can come back and it's really no problem.
So there's flexibility, they encourage it, there's resources, all those things combined make it a great place for licensure.
Yeah, and fantastic mentors too. I really,
Sure.
I think one of the really important things is that this isn't unique at a large firm, but I think if you're a younger student and you're looking for mentorship, just go talk to somebody that you admire and that works really hard in the studio. And oftentimes they're just nobody's ever approached them. So even if you don't have a formal mentorship program, just go and talk to somebody and make one.
Yeah, I like what you said there about going out and finding one if there's somebody that you click with or that is really inspiring to you, because at some large firms they'll pair you up with somebody or it's a formal mentoring system, whereas maybe that relationship doesn't always coalesce naturally or organically.
Yeah.
And mentorship really, gets its fuel from having a great relationship and respecting one another. So if there's somebody out there that you know or see in your firm that you are inspired by, go out and reach out to them.
Certainly, and this person was still instrumental in my life currently, but also sort of to my move to Array, because we wouldn't talk about architecture generally. We would go and we would have a burger and have lunch, whatever, like once every couple weeks. He was a very busy guy, like senior project manager, always on the go. But we would talk about my career and where I was going and the things that I wanted to do. And what he imparted to me was that if the best confluence of work is when you and a firm are getting a lot from each other.
Yep.
And when
100%.
yeah, absolutely. And so he encouraged me to kind of look elsewhere. I loved absolutely HDR, but I think it was time after I got licensed to sort of go somewhere that was a little bit smaller, and I was able to kind of spread my wings a little bit more.
Yeah, you hit on a great point again there, that I think the greatest managers or the best managers are those that look ahead for you and try to position you for whatever you want in life or whatever that next step is for you, not just where you are right now.
Absolutely, and that's really what mentorship is about, is just having a friend and understanding that they've been there before. They've done all of these things, and they have an incredible amount of experience to draw upon.
Yep.
So
you were about to shift. Let's shift, because your next move kind of came through an interesting pathway.
Yeah.
When we were talking earlier, you mentioned LinkedIn as a resource or a tool that helped you make the transition from HDR to your next firm.
Yeah, certainly.
So tell me about that. What happened?
It really wasn't a planned thing. I think everyone kind of has LinkedIn a little bit. I don't know the level that people use it. It just varies from person to person.
Sure.
But, I wasn't necessarily looking for something else. I was just kind of putting my information on LinkedIn just to kind of get myself out there and sort of do a little bit of volunteer work around, Denver, because I had such a good positive mentorship experience.
Okay.
It feels really good to kind of give back and like be a mentor to somebody that maybe is starting to get licensed or just came out of college. So that's what I was kind of doing it for a little bit, just to get my name out there. But eventually, randomly, I got approached by a recruiter who kind of helped me get connected to Array Architects.
Interesting. All through LinkedIn passively.
Absolutely, through LinkedIn passively. It was very, sometimes you get a little bit messages that aren't targeted.
Sure. Yep.
Would you or someone like you like a job in this industry, and you're like, I'll kind of pass on that. But then I got a very kind, directed message, and had a phone conversation, which eventually led to my path at Array.
I think this is great to hear and a great story to tell, because LinkedIn, particularly among our student audience, is probably one of the more underutilized platforms right now in the social space. So, but it's key, I think, to creating opportunities and creating networks, and you never know what might come from it.
Absolutely, yeah. I really think that's a true thing. Just get yourself out there. I mean, it's really easy. It's passive. Put your information out there, and you really get to start. And what really is cool about that is that when you're looking at your resume and kind of getting that updated, a lot of places looked at LinkedIn, and you can grab your information from LinkedIn. It's just a way to kind of incrementally keep up to date with what you're up to. Yeah, I mean, it's hugely undervalued, and there's a lot more action there than I think people realize. Yeah. So that brought you to DC and to Array Architects. Just real quick, just personal life balance kind of thing. What was it like switching from Denver to DC? What's your initial impression? I absolutely love DC. I think Denver and DC are very similar. However, Denver is a very small architectural community. DC is just exploding with opportunities and incredibly intelligent people and a lot of people doing great work. And so Array is a really fantastic firm.
So what's the culture like at Array? Tell me about Array Architects.
So Array Architects primarily does healthcare.
Okay.
It's a small firm, I'd say it's a medium size. It's about 150 people across
Sure.
8 offices,
Definitely
primarily
not small,
on the East Coast. But some of the offices range from like 4 people to, I think the home office has about 50 or 60 or maybe
Gotcha.
70.
So they're spread out.
Yeah, they're very spread out. However, you really get to know everybody really well. And it's a culture where the CEO knows you by your first name. And
Yep.
so do all of the like senior leadership. They're just fantastic people, and I think sometimes when you're at a bigger firm, it's kind of hard to get a grasp and understand and know the senior leaders. But at Array, they're extremely accessible, and you can just walk in their office and chat with them, and it's really, really great.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up what an advantage that is, because that doesn't happen at a lot of firms. And to be able to walk into the CEO's office or your project manager's office, and for them to have such an open door policy, I think is a huge advantage, especially for somebody younger right out of school who has questions galore.
Absolutely, and whereas HDR was an excellent opportunity for me to sort of get licensed, I feel like if I was at Array and in the situation of getting licensed as well, I think they would be a perfect resource.
Equally supportive.
Yeah, absolutely. They have great mentorship, and you really don't feel like a number there, and they care about your work-life balance a lot. In fact, we have like a intercompany sort of like Facebook thing, and the CEO just posted last night how important it is to report your hours accurately and say, because they look every single week. They look, if you work more than 40 hours, they look at it and make sure that you're not overextended and have a proper work-life balance. They really care about each individual person.
Yeah, the great plug for filling out your timesheets on time.
Yeah.
So we've kind of gone through small firm, large firm, medium-sized firm. But I also want to talk about the type of work you do, which is primarily healthcare right now.
Absolutely.
So what do you like about healthcare? What inspires you about it? What gets you motivated to get out of bed in the morning to work on healthcare projects?
I think healthcare is a very niche part of the architecture community. However, I think the thing that really gets me out of bed in the morning is just the positive outcomes you get from producing projects. I think sometimes you may produce something that doesn't actually, let me take that back. Let me walk that back.
Sure.
I would say that producing something that really helps people heal is really what gets me out of bed in the morning. I think that's probably the best thing about healthcare architecture.
So it's tangibly changing lives or improving lives, whereas some other building types are maybe more passive in their impact on the user.
Yep.
At healthcare, there's a direct impact on the user day to day.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a pretty clear link between the quality of the environment and patient outcomes, and that's what we really care about.
Yep. I think that's great to know, because I think healthcare for our audience is maybe something that, unless you're in a specialized program, you may not have a lot of experience in school. But so many firms are doing it that people are coming out of school and getting into those jobs pretty continuously.
Absolutely,
So walk me through your normal day. What does a successful day in the office look like for you?
Oh, wow. Let's see. So there's a lot of change, and that's what I really like about this profession. A successful day can look like a lot of different things.
Okay.
You have a number of meetings where you have a lot of client needs, client sort of demands. You can also, manage a little bit of what people are doing within the office. So I think a successful day looks like making sure that the client has exactly what they need, and they know that Array is their trusted advisor. And I think that's really where we bring a lot of value.
Architects sometimes focus so much on design that we forget that this is a client services business.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you said that, because at the end of the day, almost everything we do is surrounded upon or predicated upon servicing the client and making sure they have what they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk, go back to the personal a little bit and wrap it up a little bit with some recommendations for our audience, because we want to try to provide as much value as possible. Can you give us a book recommendation or podcast, TV show, something you're watching that is inspiring you right now, educating you, whatever it might be that's kind of top of mind?
Oh, gosh. I can't think of a book recommendation, but I think there's a fantastic Netflix series that I think everybody is into. It's called Abstract. It's really good.
I have not heard of it.
It's really nice. They have, I'm pretty sure that's the name of it, but they go, it's basically like an 8 or 9 part series where They're about 30, 45 minutes, and they go through and profile design professionals in a lot of different fields. So there's a guy that designs footwear, there's a guy that designs cars, there's an interior designer, there's a graphic designer, there's an architect, obviously Bjarke Ingels.
I was going to say, this is the one where that book features big. Maybe
Yeah, it features big, and I think it's really compelling. It just gives you an insight into what people do, and I don't think a lot of people know what design professionals do, and I think my big takeaway was that the way that we think is really where we bring our value to the table, and I think it's just, we're trained to think in such a different, odd way, but it's extremely valuable. And I think that, you know, even in this like changing environment for architects, just with the emergence of a lot of technology and a lot of erosion of our services, I think the way we think is our most important asset.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know, design thinking is kind of a buzzword that I hear over and over again. So this show sounds interesting. Abstract on Netflix. Check it out. One last thing, Tim. We have an audience of architecture students, many of whom are either graduated or about to graduate right this month. Looking back to when you were at that point in your life, what advice would you give yourself, or what advice would you give the folks that are listening who are at that stage of their career, just generally in the profession?
I would just say get yourself out there. There's a ton of opportunities that I don't think I took advantage of fully. When I was younger, I think I was sort of just finding my way in the field and not really sure. I was kind of dipping my toes in the water. Okay. There are just so many volunteer opportunities. There's portfolio review times where I've done this in DC, where a lot of younger professionals come with their portfolios, and you can review them, give them tips. There's times where you have like mock interviews. I did that as well. And just volunteering. I did this thing in Denver called the Cal Project. With Architectural Legacy. And there's sort of like a parallel program in DC that I haven't engaged with yet. But I think volunteering it's a two-way street. I think you get just as much out of it as the students get. But the Cal Project I did it for about 4 years, and we would go in for about 6 to 8 weeks to a school, and we would teach anywhere from like 1st to 4th grade, just very architecture once a week. And I think the kids were just in awe, and we would give them a little presentation, nothing too crazy. Then we would do an exercise, and then we would have a final project at the end of the year of their choosing.
That's very cool. So that's in that K through 5 space. And
absolutely.
For those who may be in Denver or interested in this, CAL stands for Cleworth. Is it Cleworth?
Yes.
Cleworth Architectural Legacy Project.
Yes, absolutely.
So check it out if you're in Denver or interested in that K through 5 space and how you might get involved.
Yep.
Tim, thanks so much. This has been fantastic. I hope you guys have gotten a lot of value out of this, and we'll see you next time on the Ask an Architect Show.